what is it that you desire, even in a relationship, your fantasy and all that? Because I talk about all these things, your sexual desires and all that. Are we open to have a conversation about all these things? And it's more like, I'm going to share with you whatever that I desire. You can share with me whatever that you desire, but it doesn't mean that I get to go ahead and fulfill that and vice versa. But we just open to have that conversation.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day, and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Gao Motsemme. Gao, a mother of 3 children, an MRI psychic surgeon, freedom illuminator, embodiment queen, change management certified expert, and accountant for 15 plus years, is devoted to helping individuals break free from patterns of generational toxic relationships and imprints. Tap into unwavering self-love and radiate true confidence so they can crush it in the boardroom, bedroom, and beyond in 90 days or less. For the past 7 years, she has been empowering individuals to reinvent themselves, redesign their life, and rebuild their confidence after major life shifts and initiations. Gao was initiated to her work through major life shifts. Not only was she mourning the end of her relationship and marriage, but she faced a judicial injustice, an injustice which led her to being separated from her children for over 5 years that woke her up to her power and calling. She has a unique ability to tune into your energetic fields, scan and work on the patterns that interferes with your freedom and success. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Gao. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited too. For the listeners or people watching, we had an absolute hoot for the last 20, 30 minutes getting to know one another. And those that are listening or watching that have been listening for a long time know I have a perfection issue about how to pronounce people's names. So it's been interesting. If you hear me pronounce her name one way and then the next way something different, I apologize ahead of time. Go to her website, which will be in the show notes, and you can listen to her say it herself in a video. Then you'll know exactly how it's said. But anyway, I digress. I like making, even of myself, nobody's perfect, right? You and I are we're all imperfect human beings working and striving, hopefully, to not be camped too long in life and climb through all the adversities and challenges to always have more days of greatness and gladness and grateful, being grateful for being alive. So I appreciate you being on the show. One of the things I focus on, and it can be as short as long as you want, is a person's origin story. The reason I focus on a person's origin story, not just the fluff of when you became an adult moving forward, as I have found personally that I connect better with people when they share their most intimate details, of course, things that you're comfortable with from their earliest recollections. Some people, it's 5 years old, this happened to them, or it can be 8, 10, something that was impactful and profound about their life that as an adult, they can look back on and go, wow, that changed the trajectory of my life. This happened within my family unit, my social circle, right? So again, if you could do me a favor, again, it can be as short as long as you want. Please share your earliest recollections from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently?
Thank you. I love to start by greetings. I come from Botswana in Southern Africa, so we greet, and in my native language, it's Dumelang, Dumelang Lokai. So Dumelang in direct translation is agree. Lokai is where are you? So since we are here at Give a Heck podcast, my question to you is, what are you agreeing to? What are you agreeing to, and where are you? Are you here fully, body, mind, and soul, or a part of you is stuck in something that happened that you feel shouldn't have happened? And with this, I'm just gonna take you shortly back to my childhood. I grew up in a very traditional family. Like I said, I come from Botswana, and growing up, I would say when I was born, there was this confidence that I had. I knew who I was. I knew who I was, and I was just excited about sharing who I am. And my memories basically is like the dance between me and my mom of, you are not like my other children. Like she used to say that a lot. You are not like my other children. And I was trying to defend myself. And I still remember another day we were actually at the kettle post because my parents were farmers. And she kept on saying that. And I stopped and I said, yeah, I'm not like your other children, because my name is different. I can't be like them. And I was just speaking out of that rebellious child thing. And that was the first time I saw her laugh, but it was the laughter of, oh God, what am I gonna do with this child? Because she laughed and I also laughed. But at the end of the day, I felt like, yeah, I said what I needed to say. So I went through life with that. I would say I didn't know there was a wound, but it's kind of like my base was more like, be defensive because you are being judged. Be defensive because you are not accepted. So I went through life with that, and growing up and finding myself in relationships at work, I still came across that relationship where still, even with my bosses, it was kind of like the same thing that was playing around. And at the same time, there was also a feeling of kind of like I had to hide who I am, because it's kind of like I'm not wanted, I'm not accepted. So there was a lot of faking. I had to wear a mask so that I can fit in. But my family got the best of me. I came across this thing of, I think it's the Japanese thing where they say we've got three faces, and there is the one that we show our family, there is the one that we show, like we pick who we're showing up, where and how we show up with different people. So with my family, they kind of like, they called me crazy. They knew this crazy person who, when I've had enough, I'll just vomit out whatever, that verbal diarrhea, say it out however I want to say it. And then at the end of the day, again, it's kind of like, I feel guilty. Why did I say that? Because it doesn't feel good, right? But when it comes to other people that don't know me, I was more like pretending to be this nice person. They just knew that, how is this nice person and all that. And I always say, life kind of like called me to be who I am meant to be. And with relationship, finding myself as a single parent of two children and going through my work, which was, I love the money, but at the end of the day, because I was working in a very big diamond company, if you're talking about Botswana, it's like one of the world's largest producing diamonds. So I had that identity of, I'm working in this corporate company. So that was my identity. I love how I was perceived in the society. It gave me, I would say, an esteem somehow, and I could also take my children to a better school. I could do everything I wanted with my children, despite their father not being present. And then come a time when I started as Whispers, and the company was downsizing, and I was like, oh shit, because I know that I didn't have a relationship that was good with my bosses. So I was like, oh shit. But somehow something within me, I was excited, because everybody was afraid. I mean, I had a mortgage, and a lot of people got a mortgage because the company was helping to pay towards the mortgage, like a big sum. So no one wanted to lose that bargain. So for me, there was a part of me that was like, this is an opportunity. I'm gonna get the separation package and I'm gonna go abroad and start afresh. So my soul was excited, but somehow my human wasn't. And then I went through the period of being laid down, I would say. I took the package, And it's quite interesting because the same year that I left the company, I had a dream. It was like around Christmas. I had a dream with my younger brother having a car accident. It was so real. I cried and we spoke about the dreams that he had. And I remember when I saw him, I was just like, oh my God, I had this dream. It was so, because they traveled to the kettle post. It was so serious. And he said, oh, how I'm going to live for a long time. I'm not dying anytime soon. And 2 weeks later, they had an accident. But thanks God, he didn't die, although he was in a, I would say, not really a coma, but he was not really here at the same time. So when I went to check on him, I saw him. I remember I went on my knees and I said, God, do whatever that you can to save him, and I'll do whatever that I came here for, because at the core of my being, I knew there was something that I'm here to do. And when I speed things up, a year later, my mom died. It's kind of like she never recovered from that shock of her last born having an accident, and also she was not well. And then fast forward after that, like they say, it doesn't rain, it pours. And then shortly after, I started going to court with my then ex-boyfriend. We were not married, and I walked in that court with my head high because I've always had this thing of, I've got it. But when I left that court, yeah, things were different. So I couldn't believe what just happened. I didn't know else well what really happened. But yeah, I faced that injustice. I appealed and I lost so many times. And by then I had a boyfriend, or my fiance at that point. We got married and I took that decision to say, kind of like giving a middle finger. If you think that because I can't live without my children and you're going to keep my children, kind of like I felt like the agenda was, I'm going to take these children so that you don't get to relocate. So I put in my courageous self and said, I'm going to do it because I know that if I stay here, I don't think I'll live for long. And then I relocated with my marriage, but I didn't know that as much as I thought that I was relocating to Germany for my marriage, that was not the path that my soul was calling me to. So through the separation, through the pain, the powerlessness, the wanting to know, to have answers to what was happening, I was just told it's time for you to do what you came here to do. And that was me being a healer that I am. And I think if all of that hasn't happened, you and I wouldn't have had the laughter and wouldn't be having this conversation that we're having. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. You've I like there was so much that you said. I liked it all, but there was some specific things that you talked about wearing the mask, right? That so many of us wear. And you talked about the three faces. I know so many of us today, especially in my career of 21 years of doing finance and lifestyle coaching and planning for people, we really don't understand. Society doesn't understand how the person to the left or the right of them is living a facade, right? And if we opened up the doors of their lives and looked inside, we'd be shocked as to the state of their life or the pain or the
Yeah.
suffering that they're going through. And then we would be much kinder. We'd be more empathetic. We'd be more understanding to their plight. And, if we could give that to people and understand their circumstances, we, like they say, you get what you sow. So if you sow kindness and humility and understanding to people that are hurting, you're going to get it back. But so many people are living that facade, as you talk about. When they're around family, friends, coworkers, they're a total different person.
Yeah.
And really, at the end of the day, I have strived my whole life, specifically in the last 20 years of my life with personal development, to be the same person I am, whether the door of my life is open and you're looking inside or the door is closed and I'm just having a conversation with you and you don't necessarily know what I'm going through, but I'm the same person. I don't want to be a different person. Am I going to go through trials and tribulations? Absolutely. We all do. And it's
Yeah.
a struggle, right? It is a struggle in life, but I don't want to be that person one moment that somebody's wondering if I'm going to be angry or I'm going to be sad or I'm going to be happy or joyous. I don't need to live that confusing of a life to the world. And really, at the end of the day, if we live that confusing life, we're living that when we look in the mirror of our and see our reflection, we're living that life to ourselves. And it's just not a happy life. So I appreciate you bringing that up, that we all need to be 100% genuine, our genuine self. And it's not necessarily easy, it's not hard, but it does take effort. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I totally do agree. And it's quite funny because when you're saying not knowing how the other person is gonna be, isn't like, am I gonna be angry and all that? It's not even about thinking about the other person, it's who we being. Because I remember growing up, it was kind of like I was afraid and ashamed of actually the society, as much as it teaches men not to feel. As a girl child, being angry is kind of like you're not a girl enough, you're not a woman enough, right? So there are other emotions that a woman gets to show, but when it comes to anger, it's kind of like it's not acceptable. So it was my base though, but at the same time, I was afraid of other people seeing that. So that means when something was happening, because I have got a great smile, so I'll just smile.
You do.
But
You do.
deep within, deep within, it will be like fire and then all that. But at the end of the day, it affects us, and I'm not saying go around and and just be angry with everybody. But the most important thing is to just admit that, you know what, this is how I'm feeling, rather than taking nonsense and just keep on smiling, yet you know how you feel within. We are ashamed of ourselves, we're ashamed of our emotions. And even now, when we look at the whole self-development, be positive and all that, we still, when someone say, oh, let me say we're having a conversation and somehow you are expressing that anger, and I'm like, so are you angry? It's quite interesting because I had a conversation with one guy who was showing some interest in me, and we met first for the coffee and we went somewhere the second time, and then he disappeared, and the third time he comes and he's like, I don't know what's going on, I told you I'm going somewhere and you didn't respond, like you didn't check on me to show that you're interested. So I was like, I'm an egg. So if you want me, you better be that sperm and come towards me and show me that you're interested. I'm gonna be that egg and just be here. But along the conversation, he was really angry. So I then said, I would like to ask a question because I don't understand. Are you angry? And the moment I just asked that question, he said, don't even dare come to me with that. Come to me with that. And I said, but I want to understand, because if you are angry, I want to know how I can respond to that, or even get to understand why exactly are you angry, So we, like, even when we're going through life, it's kind of like we don't want to admit that, okay, fine, this is what is pissing me off, or I'm pissed off right now. I'm not in a space to have a conversation. Because if you continue, when someone is showing those emotions, and you continue, like, I can get angry because I was angry like for most of my life. That's what I knew, so, but it doesn't mean that I'm gonna entertain that when I see that. But the first thing was kind of like, don't you dare come to me with that. Don't tell me, you can just check on how you are yourself, but don't tell me that I'm angry. I said, no, I'm not telling you you're angry, but I'm just asking because I seek to understand. Is it okay? Is it safe for me to continue this conversation, or we can have it some other time? So we don't want to look at this thing or even to admit where we are at, because we can't have a conversation if you are coming with anger. When I hear what the other person is saying, or even if, let's say, I was in a position where I was judging his emotions, I was not going to listen to what he's saying. Or even if, first thing, if he's really angry and I'm used to that, like I grew up with my father was like an angry man. So when somebody's angry, that may even activate that trigger, like it's kind of like, oh my god, I'm in trouble, right? So we live in this whole illusion of positivity. We are not willing to be with ourselves. So it's there's a lot that is going on.
Oh,
Would you
there
agree?
is there. Oh, absolutely. There is so much going on. We're so conditioned as a society, as you mentioned, to be a boy or a girl, and how we're supposed to be responsive. That learned behavior is embedded into us, and then we copy that same learned behavior, and we add our own little idiosyncrasies within that behavior. And people are afraid. Like, I literally have had to condition myself as a single dad raising my 5 kids, because eventually I got custody of them instead of just joint. I used to try to tell them, you know what, I'm not in the right place right now to communicate with you about this, right? And I need to understand exactly and be calm for us to have this conversation. I understand you're upset and you want to communicate. And whether it's about me or it's about a circumstance you want to talk about, I'm not in the right headspace. and I might say or do something that's not going to help you. So I'm going to time myself out. I may not have used those words, but I'm going to separate myself from this circumstance. You go to your room, or I'll go here, and can we reconvene and talk about it? And is that an uncomfortable conversation just to say that? I say it to clients, I've said it to friends, family, my kids. Absolutely. It's tough. And sometimes I I forget to calm myself to say it. And then I've got some angst, and then I'm coming across like I'm angry. And I make sure I tell people, you know what? Just so you know, I'm sorry. I realize I can feel my triggers, that I'm acting this way. I'm not upset at you. I've had
Yeah.
something go on that's affecting my 6 inches between my ears. And I just want you to know it's not personal to you. Right.
Yeah.
And I'll say that in text even. I just, I'll put it in a text. This isn't personal. This is just facts. This is just what I'm going through. Or I understand what you're going through. And that's another thing I'll tell people too. You don't owe anybody a response to a conversation with a text. They're phoning you, right? You do not have to answer that. If you're not in the right headspace, you're doing that person a disservice by answering that call. Doesn't matter who it is. It could be a phone solicitor. Don't, you know what I mean? Just don't answer that call. Don't respond to that text. And if you're going to start a conversation with somebody on texts or emails, don't send it right away. If you even feel a little bit of a trigger of an angst, read it out loud. That's another thing I do before I communicate. Say it out loud. Our brain hears things differently, right? Our tonality can be shifted, and we can change when we communicate out loud to ourselves before I reach out to you, right? I'm not saying I'm perfect at any of this. I'm saying I'm a work in project that constantly thinks this way, like I'm speaking and talking about. I think this way to make it so that I'm a better, kind human being. And I'm not perfect. And when I screw up, I'm sincerely, genuinely apologizing to people for doing that too.
I just want to do a happy dance. I didn't expect this to start with the most important thing, which is communication. It's also one of the, I think, top three reasons why relationships fail, while marriages fail, while families are broken. It's the communication. And it's one of the most important thing. And what is coming to my mind is speaking about that is even when it comes to what is coming to mind actually is like one of the conversations that I've had over the years in relationships that I was in, where maybe something happens, whatever that is, and then somebody says, I love you, I've never I've never been in a position to say I love you back if I don't mean it or if I don't feel it. So I'll receive what somebody's saying, I love you, thank you. And my ex-partners would just be angry. I said, I love you. I said, thank you. But why don't you say I love you back? So I'm like, I don't want to, I don't feel like it right now. And what that is coming through is kind of like that honesty of a child. Our children, if you have children, or if you've got young sisters, brothers, or whatever, if they don't feel like they love you, they'll just tell you, I don't like you right now, I don't love you right now, whatever that they say. Is kind of like children being children. And it's just like, how would life be if we go through life, be willing to share our truth, whether it's love, whether whatever that we share, but at the same time not expecting or forcing other people to respond to us. It's kind of like, I'm just going to share what I share and you can receive it, especially even when it comes to relationships, where what is it that you desire, even in a relationship, your fantasy and all that? Because I talk about all these things, your sexual desires and all that. Are we open to have a conversation about all these things? And it's more like, I'm going to share with you whatever that I desire. You can share with me whatever that you desire, but it doesn't mean that I get to go ahead and fulfill that and vice versa. But we just open to have that conversation,
Well, you
because
got
communicate.
ground rules. You've got ground rules. That's the way I look at it. Like, here's the ground rules of who, and that's the thing. Like, your other partners wanting to say, you expecting them, or putting them expecting you to say, I love you. Well, they're trying to instill their ground rules or the way they want life to work on you. And at the end of the day, we just have to realize we're all unique, like our fingerprints. And that's how you respond. And if that person can respect that and you have a good enough communication standard, it's not going to be perfect in any relationship, friendship,
Yeah.
marriage, girlfriend, boyfriend, work relationships. It doesn't matter. I found even when I lay down who I am and what they can, maybe just the surface level expectations so they get to really get to know me. And when I feel more confident in being vulnerable and sharing, because that doesn't happen in a first conversation normally, right? Some people I really
Yeah.
connect with and it can. We have to stop, people watching, listening. You have to stop having expectations that people need to act the way that you act or the way that you have been taught to act or you've taught yourself to act. And you got to have a common safe place to go to where you saying, you know what, I just don't feel it, so I'm not going to say it, and that other person not getting butthurt about it. Right, that I find that happens far too often. People take things far too personal, and I used to be that person. Everything I'm talking about, my listeners and people that watch the show, I've been very vulnerable with them over the last 200 episodes. I am a work in project. I was a person that was angry, sad, depressed, similar to what you were talking about. I was angry. I wouldn't look for the silver lining in the cloud. I'd look for the lightning and the thunder. Right.
Bring it
I
on.
wasn't right. I wasn't looking for the rainbow, man. I was looking for that dark, scary thing. I think coming at you. And I had to learn. And I had to have those epiphanies and I had to change my associations and really reflect on the people surrounding me and what was I presenting to them. Was I giving it a real shot? Were they the issue or was I the issue? And that's the worst. We have to admit to ourselves that we're the problem. Isn't that
Ooh.
isn't that isn't that the real hurtful thing? That stings
Mm.
when we have to go, oh, it's me, not them. And then are you courageous enough to go and talk to them and say, you know what, we talked about this and I realized my message was correct, but I delivered it wrong. I'm the problem. I'm sorry. Or maybe you admit that the message was wrong too. That's even worse.
You know? But it doesn't hurt. That's what I love. And I also feel it's an opportunity for growth, and also even the knowing that, like you said, you are a working project. That's what you say, right? I love that because it's as long as we are here, I believe truly as long as we are here, our work is not done. We're gonna grow. And as much as I can talk about whether it's confidence, authenticity, embodiment, and all that, it evolves. The level of confidence that I had as a child is different from the confidence that I have now. Authenticity, I always thought I was authentic, but it was authenticity, but it was more like the wounded part. Like you said, you're looking for the thunder and lightning, that
Yeah.
kind of like wounded. And there is negative and pros and cons about it in the sense of being wounded and being authentic. It's just that it's going to open doors where some people are just going to say, here's the mirror, look at yourself, and you may hate them or even disconnect from those people because they're showing you what you don't want to look at. But you may also be receptive at some point and say, you know what, I'm tired of all these things that I'm seeing in my life, and if this thing keeps on happening with different people, then maybe I'm the problem. Because when it comes to you being the problem, I just love that then you are the solution at the same time. So how wonderful is that?
It is very wonderful, but it's a long process. I started in the personal development world in 1993, and I look at all the evolutions and the climbings of the mountain I've had or the camping, and I've hit a plateau, and it all comes back to me. When we point a finger, it's always like they say, three pointing back. Being honest with ourselves on the daily basis, from the moment we open our eyes, and should, in my opinion, should be grateful that we even opened our eyes. We just given ourselves an opportunity now to have another shot at the day, to praise God, for me anyway. For those that believe in God, you praise nature, whatever. I don't care as long as you wake up
Yeah.
with gratefulness and gratitude and take ownership of your life. I at one point in time couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I just couldn't. Now I'm proud to look in the mirror and go, you're about a 4 out of 10, but maybe you'll be a 6 tomorrow. But anyway, I'm just kidding. Right. It's at
but,
the end of the day,
but
I like
that's
what I
true,
see.
right?
Right. Some days I'm better than others. It's just, but at least I'm honest with myself. If I can't be honest with myself, how can I serve humankind? How can I serve people? How can I make a difference if one of my grandkids reaches out, needs to talk to me, or one of my adult children? How can I truly be present with them if I'm not present with myself and love what I see? Flaws and everything, right? Good, bad, and ugly, like they say. Um,
I love that.
one of the
I love
things
that
go on, yeah.
because what I say, and it's also like for me, this was like the biggest lesson in my life to say, whether you are in a relationship and you are cheated, and it's kind of like, oh, men are cheaters, women are cheaters, or you feel disrespected in a relationship, or you feel lied to, or you feel like you are surrounded by people who are inauthentic, it all comes back to us. Where am I cheating myself? Where am I lying to myself? Where am I disrespecting myself? It's just that, because those are just mirrors. And going through my life, even the separation with my children, and the anger that I had, because as parents, we always say this, I'll kill for my children, but we're not willing to live for them. And when I was angry and all that, and I kind of like felt like I was thirsty for blood, but the question that came through, even it was, the problem is, you think this children belongs to you, you to God, they're just on a mission. The question is, are you willing to find your own mission? Are you willing to live the life that you are here to live? And that was like mind blowing, where I'm like, okay, taking a step back, because that's not what we are taught. Some people, even right now, there are people who they have kind of like resentment towards their children because they feel like I've sacrificed everything for you, but now you are busy with your whatever small family and you exclude me and all that. They didn't ask you to. You chose to do that, So if you don't, like you said, if how can you serve humanity if you can't be honest with yourself? Because people love us at the level that we love ourselves. People commit to us at the level that we commit to ourselves. And even when it comes to our children, we may think we love them, but on the other hand, if it's coming from like an obligation, I don't have any choice, I can't live my life, then at the end, you're going to expect them to sacrifice everything for you. So that means it was not really pure love. It was more like, you're going to give me something in the future. And when you look at relationship, it's kind of like the same thing, where even in my journey, it was kind of like, I would know that these people are broken, whether there's alcohol addiction and all that. It was like that pattern that was there. So as much as I see that, deep down, I know that this is not my standard. I can't live like this. I don't want this. But then a part of me was like, I can save them. I can rescue them. And why? What was the drive for me to want to rescue them? Because I thought that I have to work for love. If I rescue them, they may love me, But if they are not changing, then I'm the one who's also secretly resenting them, because I feel like they are not being who I want them to be. So it's a dance, but at the end of the day, I'm the one who's keeping myself stuck in that pain.
Yeah, how dare they break our ground rules, eh? Like how dare they not follow the process? And you mentioned about, excuse me, when we have expectations of our children or anybody, like, look what I've done for you. I can't believe that. And we use that, people use that as a weapon against us, and it falls into the same realm of narcissism and gaslighting of how people use what they've done one time to control people or manipulate them. And it's just, we live in a society where we've been way too over conditioned to do something and then always expect praise and back forever, not just, oh, thank you so much for doing that for me, and I'm never going to hear it again from you, or I'm never going to stop hearing it again. It's like it's like a broken record. It's always skipping. And if you have people like that in your life that are always constantly deflecting, it oh man, it's tiring. I just want to
You
have a
can't keep
nap.
up.
I want to have a, yeah, I want to have a nap all the time. Like whether it's our kids or I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
Eventually, it comes to a point in your life where you have to ask yourself, is that communication with that person or that time spent well served to help me continue to be the best version of me? If it is not helping serve me to be the best version of me, what do I need to change? And for me, I don't know about yourself, I do that. I do a lot of reflection at night. I do it throughout the day, depending on how I'm feeling. I lay in bed, I pray, and then I have gratefulness. And I think to myself, I was feeling this way at this point in time of the day. What was my role in that? What was that other person's role? Maybe it's a group of people. Maybe it was just me. Maybe it's just my 6 inches getting in the way. And for
Yeah.
me, it's evil. It's the devil coming into my brain, and I'm allowing it. I'm not rebuking him, or whatever the case may be. Whoever's listening, again, you don't have to be a person that's a Christian or somebody that believes in God or whatever the case may be, but you should have gratefulness. It really helps drive you to understand and appreciate where you're at in your life. And it gives you, for me, it's like an internal, my flame gets bigger and it grows when I have proper gratefulness and gratitude in the morning when I get up, when I go to bed at night, throughout the day if I'm struggling. And some days it don't matter. None of it works. I'm just being honest, right? It just doesn't. The things I've taught, the things I coach on. So then I block out the world and I just have a me day. And I time myself out. I give myself a time frame that I have to figure things out. Right? My time frame is 3 hours. Some people's it's 5 minutes. I don't know how they do it in 5 minutes. I want that special medicine to figure that out. But I give myself a time frame on adjusting my sail, my course, my direction. And sometimes I need a co-pilot, and that's a podcast, or it's a phone call to a friend, right? Or, maybe it's just praying, or it's all of it at the same time. Right. So
I love that. I love that in so many ways. And it's quite interesting because yesterday I just did a video about that. Like, I was just lying in bed and I love to tune in, because our body is like a conscious vehicle. It's always communicating. And like you said, you can be somewhere, whether you are with other people or you had a conversation, and the checking in is very important, because we are always being, like I said, what are you agreeing to? We are always being penetrated by something at all times. It may be in a podcast or you're watching someone on TikTok, Instagram, and all that. But what people don't realize is that it's not even about what people are saying, it's the energy that people are transmitting. I may be sitting here and I'm talking about whatever that I'm saying, but there is something that is heavy on my heart. I'm not talking about it or even saying I'm going through something, right? I'm just going to talk. But my energy, if my energy is not in alignment with whatever that I'm saying, you may hear the words that I'm saying, but the energy that you are receiving is different from what I'm saying. This is why I love when I say, where are you in your body? It's kind of like, can you allow your body to communicate to you rather than you telling your body how it feels? So checking in is vital. And the most important thing that often comes through, even when you're feeling however you're feeling, is this mine? Where is this mine? Because probably you just picked up something from somebody, and another thing, even when it comes to transmuting emotions or pain or whatever, it's kind of like, where is it stored in the body? Because you come in, you are within rather than being in the mind. Because at times when you get to be in the mind, you can get lost. A mind kind of like, I'm gonna open those file, old history and all that, and it doesn't take us anywhere. This is why I say, when you are in your mind, you can be easily manipulated, because you may know what you know, but if I get into your head and tell you what you are not even aware to say, okay, fine, they are saying this, it feels good, but does it feel good? When it comes to the feeling. And coming back to what I said, like when I checked in yesterday, the organs that called me, it was more the breast, and it was quite like interesting to witness that. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I connected with the breast and the amazingness, and it took me to the heart. And it was mind blowing. Even we experienced this where at times people are diagnosed with breast cancer and all that, and you just kind of like, what is happening? There are so many things, but when we connect deeply, the breasts are kind of like the extension of the heart, right? And its vitality, its beauty, its life. And when there is emotions that are suppressed and all that, the way that it manifests in the body it can be through that tumor, to say that you are not appreciating yourself, you are not appreciating life. And I love that you are talking a lot about gratitude, because at times when there's a lot of challenges and all that, and that's your focus, you are not, it's not like you are doing it consciously. But yes, if you are running with that, which at times is programs that are yours, at times it's generational programs, that are running you with something that has been inherited, and you are living in that. You don't even know. Like, it's kind of like all these things controls you. You are not able to control the way you think. Because when it comes to emotions, whether it's one thing that is actually, I would say, one thing that is very easy to know whether something is yours or not. Watch out how overwhelming it is. So when you check in, like, is this mine? If it's yours, it's easier for you to sit with it, process it, and get out of it. But if it's overwhelming, your nervous system can't take it, then that's a sign that either it's ancestral or you picked up somebody's whatever chaos that is going on in their life.
It's a struggle though. Like you talk about ancestral and we talk about learned behavior from our childhood and things pass from one generation to the next to the next. You know, when people do recognize it, what do you think is the focus that they should go to next? So if they realize, oh my goodness, internally I'm this way, and I just realized I got that from my dad, or I got that from my mom, or whatever circumstance of it could be an aunt and uncle that raised them more because the parents were too busy, or whatever the case may be. What would you say is the stage that they should go to, or where should they look for um, solace so that they can forgive themselves to move forward? Because I find if we can admit something, but if we can't forgive ourselves, it's really hard to learn and change. You may disagree, but I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I love that because when it comes to how we're feeling or whatever that is present in our body, even when it comes to forgiveness, as much as it's something that is being spoken a lot about, like just forgive or whatever, I don't think it's the first place to go. The first place to go
Okay.
is, well, how am I feeling? Acknowledging that if at all is an inner child, acknowledging that I'm hurting. And it's kind of like give yourself time to be that victim. You know, I'm hurting and this is what happened. And this is how it made me feel. It's more like be in the feeling because you are given that aspect the permission to be seen and heard. I acknowledge what you went through is not fair. I acknowledge that you were hurt. I acknowledge that you wanted better and all that, because now you get to be the parent. You get to parent yourself. So you're going to acknowledge where you at and how you're feeling. When after that, that's when then you can come to the process of you now being the parent and letting go. Because as much as being a parent, like right now, there is me who look through, like I can look at my children being whatever that they're being, but at the same time, it connects me with the child that I was and mom or my dad and realize this is not an easy task, and it brings in that compassion, it brings in that forgiveness, because when I look at my children, I have a choice to kind of like, this is how you have to be, or whatever that you're saying, it doesn't make sense, I'm hustling for you and all that, or acknowledge where they are at and how they're feeling without making it wrong, or thinking that because I'm a parent, I know better. So it's kind of like you get to be that parent for that child to say, I'm going to pull a chair, sit here, I'm going to listen to everything that you said, however that you perceived it, because the child saw that how they saw it. But if you're coming with from the conscious mind of, oh, that's not right, this is, just be grateful and all that, it's kind of like you are dismissing that child who felt unseen or unheard at that particular moment. And if you don't acknowledge how you're feeling, that's when the inner child becomes a rebel. It's kind of like, I'm going to crash this flipping car. You're saying you want money, you're not going to get that because it feels like that is important. Spirituality, what are you talking about? So now I'm going to cause chaos in this relationship that you desire because it's more important than me. You are not willing to look at me. Now the conflict within, it gets even bigger, you know. So even when it comes to being with yourself, this is where it comes like, I can tell you all these things, but on the other hand, if you don't have the capacity to be with yourself, the best thing is to seek help. Because if it's not safe in your body because something may have happened, then it's kind of like, I hear you, but I don't even know what you're talking about, because you may have even disconnected from your body at the time when whatever traumatic thing happened, because even when you're talking about trauma, it's not always a huge big thing. It can be a small thing, but at the end of the day, however that the inner child is experiencing it, it's a huge thing if the child does not have the capacity to process whatever that was happening, right? This is why even now as a parent, it's kind of like when someone says something like, this is what happened, it's kind of like, but it's kind of like, that's nothing. You may not even think that because something happened, it's what is causing you trauma, because now you are an adult, but when you look at it from the mind of a child, that was a big thing. Yeah.
No, absolutely. We discount far too much in regards to how much power our parents had over us, how much power we have over our children. And I've had many in depth conversations. Obviously, they have to be age appropriate with my kids. And how I raised the oldest versus the youngest, I grew throughout those years. I got better. I became a better human being, a better individual. And I'd be honest with my kids. Even now, as adults, we'll have conversations and go, I tried my best. I made mistakes. I own up to those mistakes. I see that you're making those same mistakes. I just want to, if you want help, I'll help you because, it's unfortunate you learn that from my ex, or you learn that from dad, or you learn that from just circumstances, like you said, just the individual traumas that don't necessarily always directly relate to our parents. It can be outside influences. Maybe you were, excuse me, maybe you were in a sport and you had a bully. Maybe the
Yeah.
coach was a bully. I've seen that happening with my own kids, and it causes a trauma, their interaction with other people, now they're more docile or they're very aggressive. You can have
Yeah.
the complete opposite in life and how we deal with things. So I appreciate your take on that. We just need to realize that we're a working project again till the day we take our last breath. And there's so many
Mm.
great things out there that can help us. But as you mentioned, if the trauma is something that it is eating away at you and it's affecting your daily life, seek help, right? I am not a professional psychologist or psychiatrist. I recommend people seek help all the time. Sometimes people don't need that. They can just have a life coach. They can have somebody that understands different modalities of how to help them with their 6 inches between their ears feel better about themselves. Everybody's level of trauma is different, but don't
Yeah.
be afraid to seek help, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, one of the things I wanted to discuss a little bit is, many of us experience toxic relationships, whether it be with a significant other, family member, colleague, or friend, like we've talked about already. You ended up in this situation a couple times. I've been there. A lot of people listening have been there. We go through their whole lives with multiple people, right? Hit and miss, right? Hurt, not hurt, happy, not happy. Initially, that romantic phase is there, then it's gone. And that romantic phase that I'm talking about, for those listening, there's a 6 8 month period. It's not just with a significant other, it can be with a new friend. It can be with
Yeah.
a new peer group of people that you're hanging out with, where you, I'm going to use an example of being in a relationship and it didn't bother you the first 6 8 months where a person leaves a cap off the tube of toothpaste. And now it's like you look at it and it just totally changes your demeanor and you're just angry over it, where 6 8 months prior you didn't care, right? So at the end of the day, why are we as humans drawn toward the same, even sometimes worse person, with that pattern? Like, what have you found? Why are we again drawn to that same type of person even though we knew it made us feel bad?
That's actually a great question. Here's what I know to be true, whether we admit it or not. The thing is, when you're talking, especially relationship, when you're talking about love, it's a four-letter word. And we all think that, oh, I want love, I want to be loved and all that, whatever that we think we want. But on the other hand, the love that we know is the love that we we're exposed to. So we may talk about it consciously, it's kind of like this is what love is. But when it come back to the body, to the nervous system, our nervous system craves what it knows. If it's dysfunction, that's what it saw. It's kind of like, this is what turns me on. At times, even when you're talking about somebody not being your type, it can just be as simple as that type. We're talking about what is familiar, so we crave what is familiar. And even when you look at the wound is kind of like a seed that is going to come out and go towards where the sunlight is. So the wound is always seeking to heal, so it's going to attract somebody who's going to trigger it. It's kind of like you got someone who's going to bring the wound into the surface, and then you get to choose to heal or not, because if you don't heal, you're going to repeat it. If you heal, you're going to evolve. And another thing is also it's just simple, like you are one with all that is. That means you're going to fall in love with parts of yourself that you are fully in love with. So when you meet somebody, it's kind of like you just seeing what you see and appreciating you. But anything else that you've put in the dark, that you've denied, repressed, suppressed, that's when that phase, whether it's 6 months, is over. Now it's kind of like I have to face my shadow. So when you face the other part that you have not accepted, now it's kind of like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna judge, hate on this part, or you're gonna look at it and say, I'm gonna bring my shadow, you bring yours, and let's work on this shadow so that we can see how we're gonna move forward. Because if you don't do the work, you can meet other people. Those shadows are still gonna come through, and they're gonna need to be dealt with. Some people think that they have kind of like, oh, I'm done with relationship. It's kind of like it's stressful, and I just love myself. You know, it's just that, okay, I don't want to look at things that are uncomfortable. I don't want to do the work. I don't want to grow. That's what it means, even though it's kind of like covered and decorated with an illusion of self-love. So we fall in love with aspects of ourselves that we have fully accepted, appreciated, and we fall out of love with aspects of ourselves that we have denied. So even when we part ways with somebody, we may think that, oh, that's what, especially in this world where we are calling names and judging and all that, I move on and I start calling names, labeling the other person, and he may also go to hell, she may also go to hell, and all that. The truth of it is, whatever hell that you've placed that person in the basement, in the cave, you have locked the door, thrown away the keys, and you are sitting close to that person. Because an
Yeah.
aspect of yourself that fell in love with that person is still there with that person.
Yeah. It's can be hard to separate the good that you enjoyed, and the evil or the negative part overtakes it, right? So I agree with you. Put it away. You can lock it away. I can look at some of the worst circumstances of relationships I've been in, and I work at the fact of when I have that memory, or something triggers it. Maybe it's an environmental thing. I see something and it triggers a memory of that person or persons. And I think to myself, if the first thing my mind goes to is a negative portion of it, I literally will tell myself, okay, don't think that way. You had this good experience, that good experience. The rest of that doesn't serve you. We always constantly feed our brain things that don't serve us. And it's like a muscle, I guess, in some regards. I try to trigger a wall to come up in my brain to avoid the negative feelings. Not to say I don't accept them, but sometimes we allow that negative feeling to control us. So I want to think it. Oh, I'm thinking that again. That's controlled me too much in the past. I'm not going to think about that. I'm going to think about positive, or I'm going to direct my thought process completely away from it. Not even thinking about the good portion of what happened in that relationship. I'm going to think about something completely different. Oh, what's going on later today? I got this going on. Or what's going on 20 minutes from now? To have my brain think about something else and not feed on that. Because as you mentioned earlier, when we think about all this negative stuff and we wonder why we get sick, we wonder why disease gets fed, because our bodies are like, oh, well, this person's always like negative. They're always in a state of tension. They're never relaxed. They never have the endorphins racing through their body from being happy or going out on a stroll or working out or whatever the case may be. We need a lot of help, all of us. We really do. And again, it doesn't mean that we can't get to a point where it becomes like a learned behavior that's good, where we can deflect, we can learn, we can move on. We're going to have days where we don't. We forgive ourselves and go, oh, tomorrow I can start again. And that's what I do at night. Again, when I have my gratefulness exercise, I analyze sometimes overthink, right? I don't know if you ever do that. Sometimes I overthink, but then I still forgive myself and close my eyes. Tomorrow is another day. Wake up. Oh, I woke up. Thank goodness. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I love all that you shared, but what I also believe is like the only way is through. So if something keeps coming up, that means there is something that is not complete. you know.
Makes sense.
So
Yeah.
even when it comes to let's say, okay, I don't want to think about these negative things, and then when I think about these great moments that we have, like it all heads either way, you know, because you've got only one heart. And I say a closed hand does not receive. If you go through life like this and people are trying to give you something, you're not going to be able to receive it because your hands are closed, right? But it's the same thing with the heart. And when it comes to love, because love is always present, and it doesn't mean that we have to be with someone for you to feel the love. So when you go through those great moments we avoid them because it's painful. But isn't it better to feel the pain, because that means the pain is still there? But on the other hand, I feel like when you allow yourself to feel the pain of, we had great moments and now they're not there, and even feel like, okay, I've been hurt or whatever, it's kind of like it deepens. There is something that opens instead of something, that grief that is being put somewhere. It's kind of like you are just inviting it and bringing in this love, this light that is here, you know, and you are slowly transmuting it. And when you do that, you are creating more space for you to receive that love, even from yourself. It also sets a tone for even the capacity of love that you're going to receive in your next relationship, rather than because when you shut off the negative things because they're uncomfortable, and you also shut off the positive things, then where you at? You know, they're all there, and somehow it's going to limit the level that you receive. Or even when it comes to feeling, because the level that you can be with those uncomfortable emotion, it means it's the level that you are able to receive the joyful, blissful, orgasmic emotions and experiences. But if you can't go deeper, because it's kind of like grounding, if you can't go deeper, that means you don't have the capacity to even receive those lovely emotions that we all always long for. And even when it comes to emotions, it's still, let's just look at the emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is like a big part that has been big even when it comes to corporate emotional intelligence and all that. But I find that somehow it has been taught from the mind, you know, or from the control perspective rather than being. So if I'm doing this emotional intelligence from, I'm going to learn how other people are being so that I can be able to control myself, or even understand how other people are so that I can either control them or manipulate them. That means I have an illusion even when it comes to emotional resilience, right? Because life is happening and we can't change that, and it's going to keep on changing. So when life is happening, how much capacity do you have to hold space for yourself and other people? And I'm talking about emotional intelligence. I'm talking about even the capacity to be present. Because when it comes to the space that we hold, whether it's for our partner, whether it's for our children, is the same space that we're able to hold for ourselves. Growing up, I mean, I was born when my father was 60, my mom was 40, you know, so that means the way I was raised is kind of like that's the way the typical patriarchal thing. And when you cry, you can be beaten, and the next thing you cry while you still cry, it's kind of like, if you cry, I'm gonna beat you again, you know, that kind of thing. And when you look at it, even right now, there are people who they can't handle a child's tears because it somehow irritates something within them. You know, they have not been able to process that stuff, and they don't want that children to cry because it's kind of like they don't know what to deal with it. And even when it comes to whether it's coaching, psychologist, or whatever, if you have not dealt with your stuff, that means you're not going to be able to hold space for other people when they're coming with all these things. And this is where like the first is kind of like just forgive, or you know, you are stronger than that, which is like false empowerment. I'm broken, but I feel like, oh, I have everything I can. So this is why even when you talk to people and something that triggered by something and you want to go there, it's kind of like, oh, I've forgiven that person, don't talk. But why all this, you know, the body, because the body never lies. Like the body will just tell you that, no, you have no, you have not forgiven. Right.
Yeah, our body triggers, though most people don't sit back and analyze them. They don't understand what causes them to be triggered. And yeah, and back to um just to reiterate before we go on to the next thing, I'm not saying a person shouldn't let in the negative. I'm saying that there's some things in life, though, that even when you've dealt with it, there can be outside circumstances or people that will trigger it. It's just, it's almost, I don't care how much you compartmentalize and lock things away in your brain and you accept it, or you feel that you've forgiven them or forgiven yourself, things still come up. So I've had to develop for myself. I'm not saying other people. I've had to develop for myself certain things that will keep those things not continually coming back up, even though I've dealt with them there sometimes years in the past, right? But there's still circumstances or individuals that are tied to that are still in my life. That conversation will come up. Or do you remember this? And they're not doing it to be hurtful. They don't realize what it's going to do to you. So I've had to develop that, if that makes sense, right? I've had to develop certain things within myself to ensure that I'm not getting triggered or drawn back into where I've already healed, right? Does that make sense?
It does, and it's different layers, you know. And what I love is even the realization that I'm being triggered here. Because for me, I feel like trigger is a breakthrough to realize, like, I'm not gonna respond, or let me say, react to somebody, to the person who's triggering that, but I'm gonna be aware that there is something here that it makes me uncomfortable, and I'm not gonna, maybe when someone triggers you, and they're not even aware, you know, how much you have processed, or even you are comfortable processing, talking about that, and then if you are not even present enough to be aware, you can just be swept into the whole thing without, like, what happened, you know. It's kind of like, but that was like a small thing, but it ended up being a big thing. So the awareness that, okay, something is happening here, and I know where it's coming from, but you can tell somebody that I'm not going to respond to that, or I'm not going to engage in that. And that's it. You continue with something else because you don't want to go back to where you were, especially if there is still a charge in something.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
one of the second last things I want to discuss is, could you share some of your methods, what your methods entail to help individuals escape from their generational trauma? And is it a process where a person that you're helping has to start at step one and go through the whole process, or do you have the ability to identify and help somebody start at step three, for an example, instead of having to start at step one?
That's a good question. And I would say, first thing, my thing is, like, I'm gonna show up. And when I show up, I allow the body to communicate. Because, like I said, I'm a human MRI psychic surgeon. That is, I step into the auric fields, and it's more like, as much as I can be having a conversation, but I'm more, the body is what is imprinting, what exactly is happening. So at times, the inner child, if at all there is like a lot of pain, trauma that the inner child is holding into, that's the inner child that is going to come in the forefront. If the ancestral stuff are more louder and influential in your life, that's the first thing that's going to show up in the session. Or maybe it's sexual trauma. It's kind of like, I'm just going to be present and allow the body to communicate. Because on the other hand, the reason why, even when it comes to my work, people get a lot of amazing results is that I can start with, okay, freedom of individuality, which is like one or the other. It's something that I would say is the beginning, to say, where do you come from? Where are you creating from? Are you creating from yourself? Or you are creating from old templates that you inherited? Like, it's the huge thing. But at times, for us to even get there, we get to start with this pain that maybe the inner child is coming with. So when that is attended to, then other things get to open to say, okay, fine, have a look at this. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I choose to be more present, and I tend to, this is like when you're talking about, can you start at 3 or 4? That's the difference, to say, when I'm present, at times when we move the inner child, then it's kind of like there is a breakthrough that happens, and then we can deal with other things much easier. Because if the inner child is feeling is not safe, and is causing all this havoc and all that, your nervous system is not relaxed, we can try to do a lot of things, but if you are not present to even receive the healing that is coming through, you're not going to receive the shift that you need. And I believe it's also one of the things that, even when it comes to either, whether it's other healers who are not able to be present to know what is happening in the body, what is it that needs to be attended to, they can do the work, but it feels like it's not sustainable. Why? Because first thing, if you're doing the work and somebody's not in the body, you know, because we leave the body when we experience certain traumas and all that. So I may be doing the work on you, but you are not in the body, then it doesn't help. You're not going to feel that difference. If the first thing is to bring you back into the body, then you can receive the healing, the transformation that is coming through. That's what I do. So my
So
purpose first.
everybody's very unique. Everything's very unique. right? So in other words, you have to have that conversation, or maybe very one-sided, because obviously you're listening to them talk about whatever, trying to get to um, below the layers and help them reground themselves. And depending on what they tell you is how and where you start proceeding to help them.
It's not even about, for me, it's not even about what the person is saying, because what we think we know is coming from the conscious mind. But
Yeah,
when it comes to the body is connected to the subconscious. So I find that at times, let's just give an example with an amazing
sure.
executive. They're leading a big company and all that. They've got, it's kind of like, it looks like they've got that shit together because they have everything. But when I connect with this man who's putting on a suit and, it's everybody's dream, like, oh, this guy and all that. For me, when I connect with that person, at times the first thing that comes through is an inner child who is afraid. There's a little child who's sitting in a corner and they're afraid. As much as they have the status, positions, and all that, the inner child is showing up and saying, I'm not safe, I'm afraid. So this is why at times, even when you're talking about whether it's narcissism or whatever, they may show up within that stoic thing, like, oh, I'm just fine, or whatever. But when the inner child is here showing that it's not fine, that's what we're going to pay attention to. Because the moment when I connect them to that, it's kind of like with my gift, it's kind of like I'm able to embody the present adult and the inner child, and we're having a conversation, kind of like it's a three conversation, and they can't deny what is expressing. Because for me, even when it comes to facial expressions and all that, like, that's how the inner child will come through and show all these things, and eventually someone just breaks down, because it's kind of like they're looking at themselves. So what we say is not, it's important, but it's not really that important, because even when it comes to communication, that 7% is only the words that we say, and 38% is that tonality, and 55 is that, like, the non-verbal, and that also includes the energy. And I believe the energy is like when we open the door, before I can say hi, you can feel my energy. Someone can be showing up and they're all smiley and all that, but you can feel like there is something. Just like when you get into a room and there has been an argument or a fight that was happening, and everybody's like, oh, hi, and all that, and you feel like something is off here. So the energy is the first thing that greets us.
Oh, I agree, because I literally will tell people you need to work at being a person that's a student of human nature, and I talk about tonality all the time too. So now it makes sense now that you clarified. I listen for people's tonality. I look at their body language, because they may say hi and pretend to be happy, but their body and their face and everything else is saying no, they're not, right? They're not,
Absolutely.
they're leaning back in a conversation like this in a chair. They're not leaning forward or
Yeah.
something. Even in a conversation, I literally will trigger on what their body is telling me versus their words, like you were saying, right? All of a sudden, they're really happy-go-lucky, and we're in a room of people, or on a call, and you can see the little thumbnail of a person. Their whole body language changes when somebody says something, and they're triggered, yet they haven't said anything, but their
Yeah.
body speaks volumes. So I appreciate that. It's so true. Our nonverbal communication is so powerful. We just have to be accepting of it in the sense of looking for it, right?
Yeah.
Not just listening to the words. So yeah, I appreciate that clarification.
Thank
And yeah, we have a world of people that are um just trying to get by. And really, if we want to be a servant of others, we need to put in the effort to serve ourselves first, understand our own or challenges, and then utilize our own compassion, empathy to go and communicate and listen to a certain extent, right? We'll clarify that. You have to watch, how is the person acting. If all of a sudden you see a person's shoulders go up and they're distancing themselves, and you're the only person in the room, guess what? You triggered something. You said something. It may not be personal to what you said, but it might be something you didn't realize was a sensitive topic for them. You can use it as a learning lesson to build a deeper relationship and say, hey, I just noticed that you changed. Your demeanor changed. Your body tensed up. Your tone changed when you responded to me. What did I say? Did I say something inappropriate? Did I say something that triggered you? If I did, my intent was not to do that to you. Can we discuss it? And it shocks people when you do that. Can you do it every single time? Sometimes you can't. You can't unpack it. Maybe I've actually had people where I'll reach out hours later or the next day and say, "Hey, I know what? I wasn't really cognizant of your feelings or your state of mind or how you were presenting yourself, or I kind of was, but I had my own stuff going on, and I just wanted to
Yeah,
say, hey, I realized that something went on. Can we talk about it?" Like being a good human being is a lot of work if we really
it
want to
is,
care and serve others.
but it's needed.
Oh, absolutely, it's needed. So the last thing I wanted to do is ask you if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
I love that. Giving a heck and never giving up. Hmm. What is coming to mind is, yeah, it's vital that we give a heck, and most importantly, give a heck about your emotion, give a heck about how you feel, because emotions are the evidence of life. And emotions are not the enemy. They're showing up because they're showing us where we are not in alignment. So when we pay attention enough, we're gonna know that I'm not feeling well here. Then I'm not in alignment. There is something that I'm being called to experience, because the level that you are not free is the level that you are not fully joyful, and that is the level that you are not fully loving.
Yeah, that's a great closing message. How many people though are scared of their feelings and they just push them back and push them back. They pack them down, and really at the end of the day, you're not being your genuine self. If you can't accept that, oh, I'm feeling this way. Why am I feeling this way? What can I do to change that feeling? Is it possible to change that feeling? Maybe I need to distance myself from the environment that's creating that feeling. Oh, wait a minute, I can't. It's my family. Well, then there's so much more things that we could unpack. We could talk for an hour and learn some fantastic information from yourself, or, even in our conversation, people can learn that there's lots of layers to healing. There's lots of layers to accepting. Again, I have to agree with you. Our feelings are something that we don't accept enough and use as an indicator for growth and change.
Yeah, but they're
Right?
important.
Oh, absolutely. So our time is almost up, and I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what's the best way that they can reach you?
Mm. I'm available on social media as Gao Motsemme, but the most important thing that I would encourage you is, like you mentioned, my website, and I'm also going to share a link with you, which I call Orgasmic Clarity.
Okay.
We have not dived much from the sexual energy part, but on the other hand, I believe life is about making love. We get to make love with life. And I'm also giving, in this link that I'm sharing with you, the Orgasmic Clarity, I'm giving a free intro to African ancient quantum medicine. So if you want to know what's happening, what is interfering with your freedom and success, yeah, book a call and let's have a conversation.
Yeah, I'm sorry we never got to that part. I had way more questions to ask and to discuss with you, but our conversation was it's still whoever listens, who's ever listening or watching, there's still so much value that you can grab from everything we have
Absolutely.
discussed. Go to the show notes. I will have the website and your social media connections in there, as well as the link that you're talking about. And just research and find out more about exactly what she does to help you in your life, because you owe it to yourself. But yes, you do have something about specifically about sexual energy and stuff, and we may have to have a part two and get you back on
Absolutely.
and just discuss that part of it, because there's so much that you can address and help with people that really we could have a 6-hour podcast it- and share so much information that can make a difference. If any of this has intrigued those that are listening, please check out the show notes. For those that are new to the show, go to giveaheck.com, click on the podcast link at the top. It will take you to the podcast page. You will see a picture of this fabulous guest. of and all the information of the show notes and everything that we discussed, as well as an abbreviated timeline so that you can find specific things within our conversation. But you owe it to yourself, if any of this has been intriguing to you, to check out Gao, right? To make sure that you give yourself what you deserve, and that's healing and growth and a life that is full of purpose and intent. Any last words before I wrap up the show?
I'm just grateful to have been here, and I hope there's a lot that the clients took away. And the only thing that I can say is I wish you a wonderful, magical, and orgasmic day, night, morning, wherever you're watching from. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you in that orgasmic clarity call.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Gao. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.